Hey, everybody. This is Lauren, also known as Jane from Teacher Misery. And I'm joined by my co-host, DeAndre Richard.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You are listening to the Teacher Misery podcast.
The show that digs down deep into the hilarious misery of being a school teacher. This administrator came to one of the worst classes I've ever had, who I actually had a good rapport with. Like, I liked them. They liked me as humans. We had
Right.
fun, but getting them all to be quiet and listen at the same time was impossible. But it was okay. I liked them as people. Oh my gosh, she came in and it was a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because every word that came out of her mouth, they were doing what they do. Like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And at the end of that class, man, her hair was sticking up in every direction. She looked battered. And she came over to me and said, "That's the worst class I've ever been in. I don't know how you do it." And walked out. And I'm
Right.
like, and she was a new administrator to the school.
Yeah.
And she left that school after that year. At least she never blamed me or anything like that. She just didn't get involved for the most part. But at least she was validating, holy shit, this shit's crazy.
Exactly.
But it was fun for me because I'm like, look at this administrator.
Exactly. Like, oh, no, go for it. Like, yeah, you had one day of this. This is 179 more for me.
Right. And one class out of 5.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, that was fun.
When they complain about it, like, oh, I can't believe it. They don't listen. I'm like, well, did you try to tell them hello and greet them by their name? Did you try to tell them to turn and talk?
Well, maybe it's because your lesson on the school rules wasn't engaging enough.
Yeah. Did you try to maybe, present the information out of your pamphlet a little different?
Let me tell you something. There was no differentiating jack shit. She was reading off of paper to them. You cannot wear head coverings. And so that's great for the auditory learners.
Exactly.
But what about the visual learners?
What about the kinesthetic learners?
Right. Maybe you need to pass a head covering around for them to feel.
Exactly. And then my students who need that extra time, did you give them that extra time for them to go back and read that a little bit deeper?
Right. But it was so funny because the kids were making great points. One girl was leading the charge. I told her, you should do better in school and become a lawyer because you're great at this. She was just like, yeah, but why? Why? Everything was why? Because these were rules with no explanation. So why can't we wear a head covering? And part of me was like, good for her.
Yeah.
And the things that the administrator was coming up with weren't sufficient because she doesn't even know. I mean, look, what is the reason that the kids can't wear head coverings? Do we know the real reason?
I don't understand it. None of that bothers me.
Is part of it the possibility of gaining things 20 years ago?
Like so long ago, but I'm like, there's so many other things that are gaining things. Like there's like certain outfits they wear, certain shoes you wear, certain other things that does not matter.
I mean, we're talking about like, oh, it's not proper for school. You're fucking kidding me, right? You don't have any rules on cell phones, but it's not proper to wear a hat in class. Like,
it's like, okay.
She said, well, if there's an emergency situation, we need to be able to identify you on the security cameras, and we can't if your hats are on. And the kid said something like, you mean you need to be able to identify us, like if we commit a crime or something like that. And she just like didn't know what to say.
Right.
But she just kept coming back with stuff. Well, what about a do-rag? Why can't I wear a do-rag? You could totally see my face. It doesn't cover my face at all.
Exactly.
But oh, it was just beautiful to see.
I love that. Yes, I absolutely adore that.
Because they should get a good response about
absolutely
things like that. And it makes these people have to question. They're just doing what they're told also.
Exactly. Which makes sense too, but I'm like, still, give that information. And even if a kid asks me something like, when my kids ask me before, they're like, why aren't we allowed to wear hats to school? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, it's stupid. I'm like, I agree.
I would wear the hat. Honestly, I wouldn't notice because how many things are you thinking about during class?
Exactly.
Like, oh, the copier was down and I need those copies for next class. So instead I could put it up online, but they don't all have a laptop. And you're just thinking about, what is this? This kid won't stop touching this kid. And so I'm not noticing you have a hat on because it doesn't matter.
At all. It does not matter to me. I don't care.
That's one of those things I've noticed is if you want to move up the administrative totem pole quickly, you get really into those stupid rules. And you stand in the hallway and you go nuts over it. Like, get that hat off. Get that hat off right now.
Take that off. I see it again. It's mine.
Right.
Like,
And the teachers who are there to teach are like, who gives a shit?
I don't care. Keep your hat. I don't care.
You're so authoritative, getting all mad about the hats or getting into it with kids about what they're wearing. Let me tell you something. I was never willing to touch that issue of the 10-foot pole. Like,
Yeah.
you might be wearing something that we're all like, whoa, should you be wearing that to school? That's a lot of your parts showing, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But I'm like, that person knows what they're wearing. I feel
Mhm.
like they're looking for some kind of confrontation.
Yep.
And they're not going to get it from me. I'm not here to confront anybody.
No,
So,
I'm not doing it. And I feel like a lot of that, to me, it goes into that shame culture later
yeah,
on, and
for
it makes
sure.
them feel certain kind of way, and I'm just like,
And then where's the line? Do we have very specific rules about
you
this?
know,
And some of
right.
those are stupid, like no spaghetti straps or no tank tops. And
Yeah, because they're gonna be
but
distracted. I'm like, yes, these boys can't think because, oh my God, her shoulders are so exposed, and that's exactly what goes through their mind all day. Like, let that girl wear her spaghetti straps and let me teach my damn math.
I mean, they have to be careful what they even say. But
Mm-hmm.
there are girls and boys whose their underwear will be sticking out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at home, they're most likely aware that their kid is walking out of the house like that. And so that
Yes.
it's up to the parents.
Right. And again, just with my life that I've lived and the things that are around, like if kids are being sexual, 100% deal with that. But like when it comes to like just dressing and being certain ways, like let people have that freedom. And that's when a lot of times people who are doing stuff like overtly and too much, whether it comes from school or home, that's when kids go to college and are buck wild and lose their minds and stuff because
That's true.
you're not giving any type of freedom, so they're going to do it all in a day. That's when they lose their mind, when they leave.
And it's like, is that the school's responsibility
Exactly. Yeah, no,
to monitor that stuff? I
I'm
mean,
like, that's
even
not
when
my
boys had
job.
their underwear out, they made such a big deal out of that with the sagging pants or whatever. I'm like, I don't, who am I to tell him not to show that? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not his butt cheeks. I
exactly.
just felt like who cares? I don't know. I want to ask you something that's
Mhm.
like sort of related, but
Okay,
how
okay.
you would have handled this.
Okay.
Since we're on this topic, my first year teaching, like a month in, these kids were doing a group project, seniors, and there was one girl and three boys. That's just how this group worked out. They were
Yeah.
sitting in like a group formation. This girl was wearing a loose tank top, and it wasn't inappropriate, but it was because it was loose. It kind of like kept slumping down,
Yeah.
and she was sitting with really bad posture, kind of
Mhm.
over the desk, and a whole boobie was out.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she wasn't aware of it. It was like one just kind of fell out, like nipple and
Yeah.
everything. And I saw it from across the room. There's no way the kids at the table didn't see it.
Exactly.
Nobody was saying anything.
Hmm.
And I turned around and pretended to like I didn't see it
Yeah.
because I just didn't want to get involved in any way. And I think if that were like who I am today and everything I've been through, I would have walked over and without anybody else seeing, I would have just pointed
Exactly.
just to make sure. Listen, put you a whole titty fell out.
Like, exactly. Right. Like, girl, that's
Are
out.
are you this?
Yeah.
Are you aware? I don't think you are.
Yeah. Exactly.
But like, would you ignore something like that?
No, that's probably would have been my response. I would tell her. I would make sure I did it in a way that is not to call her
Calling
out.
attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably, whenever I would want to tell students stuff like on the sly, I probably would have called a different student before her up to me. I would have told them some stupid bullshit like about, oh, did you turn your homework in? Okay, great.
Oh,
Like
that's
I would
smart.
whisper it.
That's smart.
Yeah, and then call her next. And like they probably would think I'd be asking something similar, but I'm like, girl, put your titty up.
Yeah. But
And then send her back.
but then she's standing up and like in front of the class with the titty out.
Right.
So
But I feel like maybe like, if she feels that awareness standing up, maybe she'll feel the wind. And
right,
then maybe she's like, oh,
yeah,
let me
that's true.
adjust myself.
This girl didn't have a history of dressing particularly, provocative.
Yeah.
And when I eventually did turn back around, it was away. So
Yeah. So at
somebody
some
said
point she
something or she
felt it.
noticed, but I was so afraid of being the person that said it because I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
I was also a little bit afraid of somebody being like, why were you looking?
Exactly.
Because that's how it is now. You're always about to be accused of something.
Right.
And my
And that's what
instinct was just like, I didn't see nothing.
Right, and that makes sense. And that's why I feel like when it comes to certain things like that, even if I didn't tell her when she got up, I would hope maybe she felt it. And then, if you don't want to ask, I would still ask her something else about work. Like, do you have any questions about the work? Or, you look like you were doing this. Like, is your group working with you? Okay, good. But, at least she fixed her shirt when she got up. But I would do
Yeah.
something to call her attention.
I mean,
But
imagine if it's like a real dude, football-y kind of teacher.
exactly.
I mean, I wonder, he's probably going to do what I did, was just like, I didn't see nothing, like just turn around, because that's like even more so like, why are you looking?
Exactly.
And it's sad that it has to be that way these days, but you do have these animals who are
Mhm.
teachers, and, the
Right.
few that ruin it.
Yeah.
Man, just there's some things that you don't forget. And that one was like,
No,
oh
I
shit.
no, I definitely agree. You like, how do I touch this or how do I reach this?
It was like on the desk too, and you'd think it was like a cold surface, but
And she's
she
she's
was
like,
just
no,
chilling out. She was a little spacey,
right.
But I mean, I've had kids get in fights and rip each other's shirts off,
Hmm.
but that just feels like just part of all the craziness, and that's not something you get involved in. This is upper level management. There's all kinds of things that happen.
All kind of stuff. They go wild.
Girl fights are so much more, I hate to say it, but interesting.
They are. They are.
Boys can't really, I don't know why I'm bringing it to this, but boys really can't fight. They just like swat at each other a bunch. But the girls, man, they get creative with the biting and the scratching and the ripping, and
They go at it.
it's vicious.
You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that stuff, I get really freaked out by that. I've just never had, in my entire life, I've never had so much anger in me that I like almost lashed out physically at someone.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I
no,
guess if somebody did that to me, I would defend myself in that way. But
exactly. Like I fight back, but I'm the same. The only fights I've ever gotten into was either defending myself or like I had to fight for my younger brother growing up because he had a lot of mouth and he was really small.
oh, yeah, that's the thing with the bullies.
Yes.
I was never really bullied. I was
Mm-mm.
just, didn't have an easy time, but I wasn't bullied.
Right. Same.
Some bullies, you got to get vicious at some
Hmm.
point. But the one I'll never forget was because one girl said something about another girl's mom that was humiliating, because that girl's mom was like a drug addict. So
Oh yeah.
you're touching the most sensitive part of
I
this
mean, it's
girl's
very
life.
sensitive. Exactly. And then she's taking out all her anger and hurt from her mom on you in that moment.
Exactly. So in a way, everybody was like, she asked for it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
she grabbed this girl's hair by the root and would not let go.
Mm.
And it went on for like 20 minutes. And
Jeez.
every teacher was coming by and trying to get her to let go, but they're just pulling on her arm, and then she's just pulling harder.
Exactly.
Pulling so hard, it really looked like she was going to rip this girl's scalp out.
Oh my Lord.
And she would not let go. The other girl screaming, and it just went on because nobody could get her to let go, until a gigantic security guard came in and body slammed her against the wall,
Ooh.
and then she let go. I'm like, this is not why I became a teacher. Like,
Right.
this is like,
This is so
because
much.
honestly, all I felt was just complete sadness
Yeah.
that the one girl was fucking with the other girl to begin with, because her life is
Mhm.
awful.
Exactly. I'm like, she already has enough going on and just stop bothering her.
And these things that constantly go on. And at the heart of it is what I'm always talking about. These kids need some help.
Yeah,
They need somebody
exactly.
to talk to,
Right.
because they're always about to boil over, because
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And
They're
the issues are
always
only
towing
getting
that
worse,
line.
and they're just packing more of them into each
Mm-hmm.
class.
And just trying to keep a face on and move on through life, but it's a lot.
Yeah. And when you're a person who's sensitive, which a lot of teachers are, it's really hard to deal with that kind of stuff day in and day out, which sounds like what
Exactly.
you were dealing with in that last school.
All the time, every day, all day, every class period.
See here, and I saw many times a boy would secretly tape a girl doing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or she would share explicit things because she's a teenager and has
Mm-hmm.
a crush on this boy and is making a bad decision. And then
Exactly.
he shares it to the whole school.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
now that girl, I think, should be on suicide watch. I mean, the whole school is making fun of her, and nothing ever happens to these kids who there's evidence that they shared these explicit things with everyone. So what are we teaching our kids?
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like, where's the program that teaches don't share this stuff so easily?
Right.
And then
And it's
also, what's wrong with you that you're sharing that to other people, that you think that that's funny?
right, exactly. It's like something that they just like, we just don't touch in school. Like you want to touch everything else, but like stuff like that matters. Like it's a way to have those conversations with kids.
You could give me 45 minutes on that topic and I could change some lives.
Exactly.
With
100%.
honestly, I used to do in the school I first taught at, where I could do what I wanted, for a unit where you just had to read a lot of news articles and how they covered things differently. I decided to turn into a unit about bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And I would give each kid an article about a student who was bullied to the point where they killed themselves. There are
Yeah,
that many of them out there. And
exactly.
they would have to do a write-up about it and then present to the class just a quick, this is what the article's about. And it would turn into, each student would take such ownership over the story they just read, because it's like, no, you got to hear this one. And they start to connect with it personally, and they all start talking about this issue. And every year kids would say to me, that's the most meaningful class I've ever had in my life. Everyone should have to do that class, because
Mm-hmm.
it shows these things that you're laughing at and thinking you're not a big deal actually push people to kill themselves. So
Exactly.
it will make them think twice next time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly. It might have been like a little blip of a thought in your mind, but it sits with people a whole lot differently
and we could
makes
be
them
doing lessons
more
like
onto it.
that constantly. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been told at other schools, like, you're not a therapist. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing some boring shit no one gives a fuck about. And I'm
Right.
like, well, first of all, they're practicing the same skills.
Mm-hmm. Same
They,
skills, same standards, all of that.
they are reading, they are analyzing, they had to do a write up with, certain standards that they had to present. They're discussing. I mean, we're hitting the differentiation. We're getting a lot of that going on too, and the student
Exactly.
engagement. And it's like they always have to find some issue.
Always.
Um,
Oh, and this is helping me do the boring shit that you want me to do, because this is helping us to actually get that engagement and all those other things. All the things you want me to do, I don't get to do because they're doing the stuff that I'm having them read about right now.
that's the thing, is I would always notice with lessons like that, when I could be creative and teach the skills in the way that I knew
Mm-hmm.
would hold their attention, that would keep the phones away organically,
Exactly.
because we're connecting now about something that each and every kid in here understands, that this is serious, whether it's
Exactly.
happened to them or they've
Mm-hmm.
seen it happen to a friend, or they've at least come across it on Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a couple of kids who think it's funny in the beginning, and
Yep.
by the end of class they are changed.
Exactly.
And not a phone comes out, nobody's texting, nobody is going on social media out of boredom, and they're like, oh, that hour just flew by, because it's relevant.
Exactly. It's something that matters to them, and they can see it out of their own lens and understanding.
So talk about engagement. That's how I always felt. Why can't we teach reading, writing, all of this English stuff through things that are relevant, so they can also learn these other lessons, these life lessons? I
Exactly.
love Shakespeare. I'm an English teacher, but I don't think it's necessary that they read 4 Shakespeare plays before they graduate.
Right. 100%.
They
Yeah.
let's do one.
Yeah.
And cool, you did that. See, it wasn't that
Exactly.
bad. But
Right. You got it.
for your
No.
average kid, it's a waste. It's a
Mm-hmm.
waste of a lot of opportunities.
No, I agree. And that's the same way I used to try to teach math when it came to certain things. I'm like, when King's like, I'm never going to use this again, I'm like, some stuff you won't, and I'm like, let's go over that. But a lot of the math, I try to make it real world. I give them projects and make things that they actually understand and that will be relevant into their life, and doing things like some of my end of the year projects would be like them not only just having their normal budget, but it'll be a budget for things that they care about. You want to come up with you paying your bills and paying for your family and doing this. Like some people are like, I'm not going to have a family. Some people are like, I'm not going to do it. Great, cool. Let's think about the job you want. Let's think about this, the house you wanted to do, and come up with a budget and the spending with it, and just all the
It's
things,
like
like if they're like
whatever
doing their house,
is of interest
whatever.
to you.
Yeah. It brings it to them in that real world where it's like, I'll never use this math again. I'm like, okay, well, let's use math that you will. And then while they're doing that and doing these projects and things, they are working on all those standards that they thought they cared nothing about. But they don't care about, how tall the flagpole was and this man standing away from it and blah, blah, blah. Like none of that matters in their mind. So, I mean, you can teach them the same stuff, but give it to them in a way that they have some interest.
That's what I feel like was my biggest strength, was making it engaging and relevant. And
Mm-hmm.
then the tighter the control started to be, you need to be doing what the other people on your team are doing, lockstep. And
Yes.
then they are very different personalities, and they
Right.
are doing this in a real dry way. So now I'm back to babysitting, even if the class is somewhat well behaved. If I'm not even interested in what we're doing and I don't see the relevance,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to get my students to care?
Exactly.
So is it such a bad thing if two teachers who teach the same class are teaching the same standards in a different way?
Absolutely not. Like, oh,
But
it's no
it,
problem.
it always came down to parent complaints. I'm like, what are the parents going to complain about? The parents are going to complain about the other class, not mine.
Exactly.
So maybe
Exactly.
talk to that teacher.
Yep. I had one parent who did that before, and I got that child put out my class into another class because I'm like, I don't want to deal with their mom and I don't want to deal with that parent. And guess what? That child was pissed at their parent, and the parent came to the school like a week or two later asking, can their child get back in my class? And I was like, no, I don't
Uh-huh.
want to deal with you. No,
Mm-hmm.
because you're legally allowed to remove a certain percentage of your class with no questions asked. A lot of teachers don't know that, but you're allowed to get a certain amount of students kicked out of your class if there is another option at your school. Put them in there
Wait. As the teacher?
as a teacher. They don't talk about it. I learned that
Wait,
from my
wait, wait.
educational leadership. I know. I know.
This is a law?
It is. It's a
Because
law.
I've had students, like I wrote about in my first book, a student who set the school on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and the parents blamed me because he failed my class, which was my fault, and it caused him low self-esteem, which is why, I mean, this is an insane line of thought here, but
Right.
before he could be expelled, which I would have been amazed if they expelled him, they
Mm-hmm.
withdrew him and then re-enrolled him. And it was like it never happened. And he was
Yeah.
back in my class, and he was
Nope.
saying and doing weird things. And I
Mm.
went to an administrator and I said, look, I've taught here a very long time. I've never said this before, but I'm uncomfortable teaching this kid. They blamed me.
Yep.
And, there are these red flags and da da da. And she said, did the student threaten you directly? And I said, did the student say, I'm going to kill you? No. But here's the things that did happen. And I was told, if the student did not directly threaten your life, no, you're not entitled to say that you're uncomfortable or you feel unsafe. Next.
Mm-hmm.
But you're
Nope.
telling me this is a law?
It is. It is a thing. It's very not talked about, and each state has its own regulation with it, basically. But how it is in when I was doing mine in Florida, I want to say that it averaged out to like 10% of your class or a little bit less, which basically meant like one or two students you were allowed to remove without any question from your class.
That
Another
wouldn't fly
teacher.
anywhere, because
Mm-hmm.
it would be like, you're discriminating, you just don't like him. And then you are pushing a problem over to somebody else.
100%. Because if it was something like that, you can get in trouble for it if they feel like you're discriminating or something against that. But if they know that it's like a problem child and things like that, you can get them out of your class. It is
I feel like it would end
law.
up being like a hot potato,
Yeah.
like,
And
oh
I
God,
feel
now I get to turn with so and so.
and
And
I think that's why they don't tell people that you can do that, because it can become a whole lot of things.
right.
But yeah, no, you
That's
are allowed. Just like that, I got that student put out my class because of that parent complaining about me. And then another year, I got another student out because this girl was trying to act like she tried to get me in trouble. She said that, like, she was like, Mr. D, I had a car drive past my house last night. Was that you? I said, was that what? And she was like, oh, I didn't know if it was you. I was like, oh, no fucking ma'am. I was like, I don't know where she got that from, why she would say that. But I went straight to my principal. I said, I want her out of my class. And I was like, I don't care where she go. I don't care if you set her out in the middle of the playground all day. She can't come in my room ever again. And she was gone.
wow. But that's like so remarkable to me, because I've had kids just like call me a fat bitch, and
Mm-hmm.
and forget having them out of my class. I mean, it's like, well, what did you do to make that student feel like you were being a fat bitch? Or
I know. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
I'm like, well, I gained a little weight after last pregnancy, but the bitch part, I really don't know, because I feel like I'm just really nice. So
Right.
but also they could just say whatever they want to. I feel like they just won't allow it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's
Yeah.
so many that you want to get rid of now. So it's like, can
Mm-hmm.
I get rid of this whole class? Because
I know that. See, that's why you definitely can. You can't, but you can get rid of basic. Like when it comes down to it, it's like one or two.
Because there's one kid that ruins the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
then
that's
that kid, you're going to give him to someone else, they're going to ruin that class. So, I mean,
yeah.
somebody should just stop and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with this
Just
kid?
get them the hell out of here, right? And you know,
Right.
and sometimes it's like even in the ones who I like put out, because again, I'll deal with a bad kid. I don't care. That's never my problem. But for this little girl to ask me about coming by her house, no, ma'am, I'm not dealing with that. And then for another parent who's complaining about me when I know I'm not doing no problems and everybody else is fine, I'll let
Right.
you
Well, I
know.
mean, if you're complaining about me as a teacher and you don't know because you're not there, so you're
Mm-hmm.
believing whatever your kid is telling you, then yeah, go ahead, go leave.
Exactly.
Go try out Mrs. So-and-so. I guarantee you're going. I'm always like, you're going to be missing me. That's what I always say. And they make a little face, and then at the end of the year, I'm like, I'm just saying, these three over here gave me an attitude all year. Next year, I see who's on the lineup, and you're gonna be missing me. You're gonna be coming back here, like, oh, trying to get back in my class. Oh, I missed you so much.
Exactly.
I'm always relieved when the parent wants a kid. It doesn't happen often, but when a parent wants a kid out of my class and they do it just to make the parent happy, I'm like, great.
Yeah, take them,
Usually that
please.
kid,
Take
there was
them.
something wasn't right with the kid, so that would have been very helpful.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I would look it up. I would say check and look and see what your state one is, but they're always allowed to get rid of that percentage.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
over for me. I don't even look
Oh,
into
of course.
Oh, you mean
Of
people
course.
who might be listening to this?
Mm-mm.
Right, listeners, look into your state law, but you'll probably get in trouble just for bringing this up. Like, why do you want to get a certain percentage of your class out? You just need to work on your classroom management skills.
Like, you need to leave me the hell alone and get them out my room.
But you need to work on your school management, because
Yo.
it stinks from the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the head of the school at all. I'm all the way at the bottom. I'm the lowly teacher. I'm just trying to teach kids some critical thinking, some reading and writing, so they're not total idiots.
Exactly.
You're always going to need to be able to read and write and speak clearly. So maybe not the writing because we have AI now, but
yeah,
maybe not even the reading because something will read to you. But you want to try to speak clearly so we know what you're saying.
Exactly.
When you're in that TikTok video, you want the captions to be able to pick up what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sticks from the head. So if this school is a mess, that's not my fault. These kids come into my class knowing they can do and say whatever they want. That didn't come from me.
Oh, look, see, I just Googled it, just a random one besides my state to make sure. And it's called in Texas, they even have it there, and it's called Chapter 37. In the Chapter 37 removal, they said that a kid can be removed. A teacher may remove from class a student who has been documented by the teacher to repeatedly interfere with the teacher's ability to communicate effectively with the students in the class, or the ability for students' classmates to learn, or who behavior the teacher determines is unruly, disruptive, or abusive, and they feel like they can't function in their class. And the school has to remove them. They has to go into what they call their placement review committee. And they can't bring them back. The only reason that they can allow them back into the classroom, they said, is if the placement is found for some reason to be best placement. So like if you are a teacher that teaches inclusion and you're the only one that can teach those type of students, or there's no other alternative available, like there's not another class. But if I want them out,
this
I get
law
them
has to be like 50 years old because when there used to be one kid who couldn't get his act together.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine now? I mean, now it's like a circus. So
yeah, exactly.
And now, how many times does a teacher document some really serious things? Like this kid bit me and wouldn't let go for the 15th time today. And it's all documented and here's photographs of it. Yeah. And no one cares. Like,
no, bite number one for me is over.
I was always like, anything physical, even if by accident, like if a student gets thrown into me during a fight and it wasn't on purpose, I'm out. Like I was always waiting for that almost to happen because it a lot of times just felt like it was probably going to happen.
Right. They're crazy. I had one student one time come up and he tried to fight me. He was this big guy. He was going to come in my face like he wanted to fight me. And I guess he was used to doing that with other teachers in the past and them being scared. When he stood in my face, I just stared right back at him. I didn't move. And I told him, I just want you to understand before you hit me. Mr. D is young enough to lose his job and start a whole other career.
Oh, I love
meaning
it.
that as soon as you touch me, I'm going to fight you back. He's like, "What? I'm gonna fight you. As soon as you touch me, I'm fighting you. I just want you to know before you do, make the choice. But I'm not scared to lose this job."
And then he was like, never mind.
And he sat down. He sure did. And I meant every word that came out of my mouth.
But
Like, all right.
that's what they need. They
Mm-hmm,
need you to be a real person back to them.
I said, I don't care nothing about this teaching job. You hit me, we fighting.
And I don't get either why you're not allowed to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess they hit you and that's that. But what if they keep coming at you?
Yeah, no.
Are you not supposed to do something to get them off you? Are you supposed to just keep taking it till someone else pulls them away?
Till they pull them off? No, thank you. That's not happening over here.
I don't know that I have those skills, but then when you're in that situation, the adrenaline takes over and everything. But
as soon as that boy got in my face, that was my response to him, because I never pre-planned it. When he ran up in my face, that's exactly just what came to me. I was like, I just want you to know, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you. I have enough control right now to not start fighting you, but I'm letting you know, as soon as you start, it's going down.
See, here's the thing too. People might think it's fucked up that a teacher is going to hit the kid back, but in anywhere else in life, the kid is going to get hit back.
Yes.
More than once. If he threatens to hit somebody in the real world when he's 18 for some stupid reason, he's going to get his ass kicked. He might even end up in jail.
I'm about to say you're going to jail first off. Even if you got beat, you're going to get beat up and still go to jail. Or if you win the fight, you're still going to go to jail.
And so they keep getting away with this shit and thinking like, it's no big deal. But, you know, when you do something crazy and you hit the teacher, you should maybe get hit back.
Exactly. It's as simple as that.
And you're hitting an adult. And the whole thing is like, why? And why is this even happening so much?
Yeah.
Because it can. Because kids.
It can.
No, so-and-so broke this teacher's nose last week and he's still here.
It's like, well, what did you do to make him do that? What? No.
I mean, if that's not gaslighting and abusive, I don't know what is. That
exactly. You
get attacked and you have some kind of serious injury and you're told, not only is the kid not in trouble, but what did you do to provoke this?
Exactly. It's like, it's literally an abusive relationship in the form of a job. I don't know any other jobs where people just say that and just do that. It's very much like, it's that victim blaming and it's very abusive.
It is.
Like, well, what did you do?
I hear from teachers all the time, especially special ed teachers, who get abused on a daily basis. And it's like, this is part of your job.
Part of it. Yeah. It's just normal.
I don't think it is. I think there are some extreme situations where the teacher knows what they're signing up for.
Yes.
I don't know the terminology, if it's like self-contained or.
Yeah. So they'll have the stuff, like at my school, when I had that, we had a self-contained autism unit, and a lot of those students who were autistic, some of them were also bipolar, they had EBD, some of the other things, and some of them were violent, you know, but they had their own building of the school, and everybody who went there, they understood that was part of it. But I didn't have those kids in my class.
Protocols for when a kid starts doing that stuff.
Yes, they have certain like things that they would do. They had certain ways they were supposed to talk to them. If they did have to hold them to restrain them, they had certain restraint. You can't just grab the kid and choke them out.
Right.
They had restraints that they knew. Yeah, they knew what to do.
But now what I'm hearing is that just regular special ed classes, kids that aren't coded with emotional disabilities and things like that are just lashing out. The teacher's just telling them sit down or something like that. Yeah, and the kid is just biting them.
No, see, I can't. It's because like, and I taught inclusion like that, especially in elementary school. I taught the kids who were, you know, functioning enough to be in the inclusion class because they wanted to get as much, you know, of course, general education as possible. But those kids can't be in my class, and you're trying to bite me and do all that stuff. I'm like, I'm not trained to deal with this. Like,
There's another thing that I've heard. They often do like this bait and switch. They'll hire a teacher who has no training whatsoever in any special ed. They're just like a regular teacher, like I was. And they are being told, okay, you're going to be a kindergarten teacher or you're going to be a ninth grade English teacher. And then a couple of days before school starts, they're like, well, actually, you're going to be doing this. And you're in one of those rooms. You're in like a unit for emotionally disturbed kids. And you were given zero training and you're alone with more kids than there should be.
Right. Or they'll tell you have an ESC specialist who helps you out, who only comes 30 minutes every 2 or 3 days.
Right. And like, still no training for you whatsoever when it
right. Exactly.
bites you. Like, I
Like,
wrote an
dang.
article about this woman who had only ever taught kindergarten for like 15 years, and she was hired in this district to teach kindergarten. And they waited like 2 days before the school year started to actually get her the contract. And it
Mhm.
said special ed. I can't remember the name of it, but like the autistic unit for kids that do lash out violently.
Yeah.
I can't remember the letters that stand for it. And when she said something, they were just like, well, we made a mistake. And if you want the job, and of course, now it's too late
It's too
to
late
pull
to pull
out,
out. Yeah, she
get
can't
another job.
interview anywhere. Yeah, it's too late.
And she's like, well, let me just see. And that first day, a kid bit her, like no reason whatsoever, on her breast and sunk in and wouldn't let go. And she had to go and get like a tetanus shot, and it left a scar. And that was just the first of a ton of different attacks. And there was nobody else in the room with her. And there were more kids than was legally supposed to be in there. And she had some permanent injuries at some point.
Oh, crazy.
And whenever she would try to point out, I don't have any training for this, or this isn't legal, just totally ignored.
Yep, exactly. And they're like, oh, well, deal with it.
Which is, I mean, totally legal.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But,
Totally is. And they can have to overcrowd it as long as they feel like paying the fines. They'll add however many kids they want.
and they're also, she said, putting kids in there with only behavioral problems. They're not
Mhm.
autistic. They just,
Exactly.
it's an emotional disability, and they're not supposed to be together,
Right.
but they don't know what to do with this kid.
So we're just gonna put it in here and hope for the best.
Right. I mean, oof. Well, we talked about so many different things today, but I always like to just see where it goes, because it goes to some interesting places.
I love it.
So we're going to end here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you enjoyed what you heard, keep tuning in.
We definitely hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please rate us and give us all the best ratings, of course, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Let us know what you're liking, what you want to hear.
For sure. Also, check out teachermisery.com. I'm constantly writing articles
Teachermisery.com.
on there.
It's amazing things on there. You can get
Not
all her
all kinds
amazing
of stuff.
books
We're out of the teaching world. We could just tell it like it is all day long. So
all day long. Give the truth.
yeah. So come back next time.
Yes.
And if you're in the teaching world, hang in there. I think you're amazing that you're still doing it.
You're amazing.
And if you're out of it, I think you're amazing that you did the right thing for you and you stepped out to take care of yourself.
Congratulations.
So until next time.
Talk to you soon.